So I actually stumbled across a survey the other day that found 40% of Americans couldn't cover a $1,000 emergency expense with cash or savings. And at the same time, 60% of the respondents said they had an unexpected expense pop up in the past year. This really ties into the fact that most people ignore setting aside an emergency fund until it's too late and they have to take a loan out or put it on a credit card and just have to suffer those ridiculous interest rates on credit cards. So that's what this video is about tonight. I want to talk about why an emergency fund matters and how to actually build one without feeling overwhelmed or just thinking you can't do it, it's not for you. So stay tuned. Why emergency funds matter? Emergencies are inevitable in life. You think you're the healthiest, you think your car's doing the greatest, but they're emergencies for a reason. They happen out of nowhere. You really can't plan for them, whether that be in car repairs, medical bills, job loss, especially in this current economy we're in. A lot of jobs are being lost, being replaced. A lot of people are getting laid off. So it's a serious concern that many people aren't taking serious nowadays. With that, not having the emergency fund, not having those savings can turn small problems like having to replace a tire or a unexpected visit to the hospital. It can turn those problems into major financial setbacks, especially when it comes to taking a loan out to cover those costs or having to put it on a credit card and paying those ridiculous interest fees. So having a buffer means you're not solely relying on those credit cards, on a loan, or borrowing from others. Like I said, you have that money set aside to cover those costs. And it's not about how much you make. It's about having a system to protect yourself. You don't need to make a ton of money to put some money aside. Slow and steady wins the race. Common reasons people avoid starting an emergency fund. You hear the thing, I don't make enough money, or I'll start saving when I make more money. It'll take forever to save anything meaningful or to a certain value they deem significant enough. These thoughts keep people stuck. At the end of the day, it's just like investing. When it comes to the emergency fund, it's about small, consistent steps to reach a target goal that you set yourself. So how to actually start, even when you're starting from zero. So let's say you're starting from zip. You don't have $0 in an emergency fund. Set a simple goal. Just like investing. If you want to start, or if your goal for the emergency fund, let's start $500 or $1,000 to begin with. We don't need crazy values. Let's just start at an attainable number and we'll climb from there. Separate your savings. This really helped me a lot. I actually set up my high yield savings account to act as my emergency fund. So with that, it doesn't get, while my paycheck goes to my bank, I will take a certain amount out and put it towards my emergency fund until I hit a certain value. This just makes it where it kind of keeps your emergency fund out of sight, out of mind. When you put it into a high yield savings account, for example, it's kind of like set it and forget it. You don't look at that as, oh, hey, I have some money to spend this month. This is the money that I do not touch in case of an emergency. You can even automate it, kind of how where you can get your money sent to your bank account when you get paid. You can even have it set up where it will take a certain amount of money that you designate to your other account that includes your emergency fund. For my case, it'd be the high yield savings account. I can automate it where, let's say I want to put $10 to $20 or whatever the amount you're comfortable with putting in. I can put that money to automate over to the high yield savings account and continue to build up my emergency fund stash. You can even, as you slowly contribute money into there when you get paid, you can even use windfalls, whether it be tax season. If tax season's coming up and you're expecting a tax refund, you can use that to fund your emergency fund. Birthday money, gift money, or if you have a side gig on the side where you don't need that to pay your monthly expenses, try to put a big portion of that towards the emergency fund to get to that goal number you were wanting to achieve. And overall, this will just boost that fund faster and you'll be able to get to that number quicker. And then a little thing, if you're really struggling to save that $10, $20, $50 a month, cut small costs, whether that be subscriptions, takeout, food, impulse spending. This may only be temporary if needed. If you just want to, cancel some subscriptions for a temporary basis just to reach your emergency fund goal number. And who knows, maybe you'll get to a point where when you cancel these and you notice how much money you're saving, you're like, wow, I really didn't need that Netflix subscription, or, wow, I really don't have to be taking DoorDash a couple times a week for food. I'll just cook my own food. So I think it's a win-win in both situations when you look at cut small costs. Ultimately, what to keep in mind, this isn't an investment fund. I know we talk a lot about finances, personal finances, and investing on this channel. Do not look at your emergency fund as an investment fund. It's there for unexpected, aka emergency expenses only. You're not trying to grow wealth here. Although, keeping it in a high yield savings account, it will slowly earn you some interest on a monthly basis. So, it's a win-win at both ways you look at it. So ultimately, you're not trying to grow wealth here. You're trying to protect your foundation. Don't feel guilty if you have to use it in case of, an emergency. That's what it's for. You can't, your tire goes out in a car, you need to get a new tire, you don't have enough in your savings account, pull from the emergency fund. You had an unexpected visit to the hospital, insurance didn't cover it all, you have a copay, use your emergency fund. Whatever the case may be, that's what it's there for. It's there so you don't have to take a loan out, so you don't have to put it on a credit card and pay ridiculous interest fees. It is a positive you have to look at, and ultimately that's what it's there for. So don't be afraid to use it if the case really calls for it. And then replenish it with you can. If you do have to replace a tire, $200-$300 tire, okay, you took $300 out. Go back to previous where you're like, hey, I have to replenish those $300. So go back to automating that 10, 20, 30, whatever the number may be, that monthly automation to the emergency fund account until you replenish that $300 you took out for the tire. So my final thoughts here, starting, just like investing, starting is more important than waiting until you feel quote unquote ready. It's one of the best financial habits you can build early on. Like I said, you can't plan for an emergency. Like, you don't know, oh man, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and have chest pains. I have to go to the hospital, or I'm not planning on driving my car and running over a nail and popping my tire and I need a new tire. You don't plan for those. Obviously, keeping a fund on the side, you can be prepared to pop your tire or having to replace your tire, but you don't really expect to go run a nail over and have to replace your tire. So peace of mind is worth way more than the number in the account. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a crazy amount. I know a lot of people suggest 3 to 6 months of your expenses. So if you live off $2,000 a month, if you want to put in between $6,000, which would cover 3 months worth, or $12,000, which would cover 6 months worth, just kind of play with it, see what you feel comfortable with putting in. And like I said, if it's a bigger number, if it's going to be towards that $12,000, it may take you 6 months to a year or a couple years to build up to that emergency fund. But when you do, the peace of mind is worth every penny. And at the end of the day, if you've been putting it off, just like investing, let this be your push. Get your emergency fund figured out. When you get that fund figured out, then you can go back to investing, or if you haven't begun investing, set the emergency fund to the value you want, achieve that goal. When you do that, then you feel a little more, you'll feel safer to start investing when you realize, hey, if I lose my job, I have 6 months worth of emergency funds in that account that I do not touch. It's only for emergencies. So start start this week. Set a small goal, open a new account. If you don't have a high yield savings account, this is a perfect source to put that money in. You can earn a little interest if you hit the certain value that they require for you to earn an interest on your money. And automate a small amount every month. If you guys start at $10, $20, so be it. It's better than nothing. So feel free to drop a comment if you're building your emergency fund or you need help starting. That's what I'm here for. And I'd like to think anyone else who reads the comment and is experienced in the emergency fund will give you a helping hand. So feel free to drop a comment if you're starting it or you're still a little confused. As always, like the video if this helps simplify things, and if you're into real practical money content like this video, hit subscribe, hit the like button, and drop a comment. Big thanks to everyone watching. Welcome to the new viewers. And as always, the returning viewers, I really appreciate your support. Hope everyone has a happy Father's Day today, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.